Jason and Olivia had only been married for a short time, even though they had been together for 7 years. Both were 30 years old, mature, independent adults. They had taken their time before tying the knot, not rushing into marriage impulsively. They only moved in together after officially becoming husband and wife. Fortunately, Olivia had inherited an apartment from her grandmother, which was a tremendous help for the newlyweds. Each of them had their own hobbies and daily routines. They often joked that they were modern enough not to keep tabs on each other, focusing only on themselves. Their favorite ritual was sharing dinner, watching a show together, and then relaxing over tea by candlelight in the kitchen. One evening, they were doing just that, unwinding after a long day. Halfway through their second pot of tea, Olivia glanced at her phone and said, "You won't believe this. Emily is getting divorced." Jason was stunned. Emily and her husband had always seemed like such a strong couple. "What happened?" he asked. "He's gone back to his first love, apparently," Olivia replied casually, still scrolling on her phone. "Turns out, he's been having an affair behind Emily's back for 6 months." She spoke about it with a shrug, as if it were no big deal, something not worth getting upset over. Her tone immediately put Jason on edge. "So," he said, watching her carefully, "would you ever forgive me if I cheated?" Without looking up, Olivia shot back, "Are you planning to cheat?" "No," he snapped, "and I wouldn't forgive you either." "Don't worry about it," she said, sounding uninterested. Jason didn't like where the conversation was heading, so he shrugged and walked out of the kitchen. But that brief exchange stuck in his mind and kept bothering him. He had never seriously thought about infidelity, neither his own nor Olivia's. He was certain he would never cheat, but he had no way of knowing what might be going on in her head. That lingering doubt unsettled him. He tried discussing it with his friend Andy, but Andy basically laughed at him. At first, Jason felt hurt that his friend wasn't more supportive, but later he realized Andy might have a point. Jason was creating problems out of nowhere. Olivia had never given him any real reason to doubt her. She had simply shared news about her friend's unfortunate divorce. He was the one who had taken it and run with it. Still, he began noticing small, strange things. For example, Olivia had suddenly become very interested in driving the car. Before, she had rolled her eyes at the idea of even having a license. Now, she couldn't seem to get enough of it. Jason found it quite amusing, though he never mentioned it to her directly. "So, who do you drive around with all the time?" he asked irritably one day while they were in the car together. "I mean, seriously, would it kill you to throw out your trash when you're done?" Candy wrappers and empty coffee cups were scattered everywhere. "Oh, that's just Emily," Olivia replied, trying to calm him down. "She's been such a mess because of her divorce. I'm not about to nag her about leaving trash." "Then at least clean it up yourself if you're using the car," Jason grumbled. Olivia reached over and gently touched his shoulder. Jason couldn't help but smile slightly. He truly loved his wife and could never stay upset with her for long. In the end, the pile of crumpled coffee cups and sugar packets didn't matter. He'd just toss it himself. A few days later, Jason came home from work to find Emily, the same friend going to the divorce, over at their place. She didn't seem the least bit gloomy. In fact, she looked downright cheerful. Jason was happy for her. Maybe things weren't as bad as he'd assumed. She greeted him with a big hug and a friendly pat on the back. They chatted briefly, and he started heating up leftovers. Olivia was smoking on the balcony, so he left her to it. Emily poured herself a cup of coffee, took one sip, and made a face. "Oh, do you want sugar?" Jason asked. "Let me grab it." "Oh, no thanks," Emily said, grimacing. "I hate sweet coffee." Jason froze for a moment. Wasn't this the same Emily who supposedly left sugar wrappers and stir sticks all over the car? At least, that's what Olivia had told him. Trying to keep it casual, he nudged the conversation in that direction. "So, you and Olivia hang out a lot these days?" Emily shook her head. "Honestly, no. I've got so much going on at work with end-of-quarter reports. I barely see anyone. We mostly just call each other." Jason nodded and went back to fixing his dinner, but his mind was racing. If Emily never rode with Olivia, Who was really leaving that trash in the car? Emily had no reason to lie about something so trivial. By that evening, the question was consuming him. All night, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally, he came up with a plan. He'd buy a small device to record whatever went on in the car, a bug of sorts. Right away, he checked online, found what he needed, and, feeling oddly relieved, managed to get some rest. The day arrived. Jason had the bug in hand. He read the instructions, tested the recording feature, and hid it beneath the driver's seat. Now, all he could do was wait for Olivia to borrow the car again. Surely, if she was giving rides to some mystery passenger, he'd catch it on tape. Sure enough, just a couple days later, Olivia announced she was taking the car to help Emily with some divorce-related errands. Jason forced a casual smile, though inside he was practically thrilled. In his mind, there was a 99% chance Emily wouldn't be in that passenger seat. All day at work, he could barely concentrate, counting the hours until he could listen to the recording. When Jason got home that evening, Olivia was already there. He told her he had to head out to see a friend. His heart raced as he rushed back down to the car. He plugged in his earbuds, pressed play, and braced himself. His palms were sweaty. He had to rewind a few times and skip ahead until he finally heard the car door slam. And there it was, a man's voice. Jason's stomach dropped. So it's real. She's really doing this, he thought. He fast-forwarded to the recording, trying to make sense of their words, but his mind was spinning. Then, suddenly, the engine noise stopped, and what followed was a series of rustling sounds and a soft, unmistakable moan. Olivia's moan. Jason yanked the earbuds out, breathing heavily, as if he'd just sprinted 100 yards. He realized he was gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He stared into space, feeling like a madman. After a moment, he decided there was no point in dragging it out. He had proof, and he was done. With the recorder still in his hand, Jason went back upstairs. Olivia blinked, confused to see him return so quickly, but he said nothing. He handed her his earbuds, waited until she put them on, and then hit play. Her face went pale as she understood what she was hearing, and what he now knew. In that moment, everything was over. As Jason had warned, he would never forgive her, and she didn't ask him to, either. The apartment was in Olivia's name, so Jason packed up what little he could and moved out. He crashed on a friend's couch until he found a small room to rent. Through mutual acquaintances, he heard bits and pieces about Olivia's life. She apparently sold the apartment and moved somewhere else, presumably closer to her new boyfriend, Jason Guest. Any fantasies he might have had about her life falling apart never came true. She seemed to be doing just fine. Eventually, Jason realized he had to let go and focus on moving forward, too. He stepped past that painful chapter, leaving all the heartbreak behind.